morning. It's good to be with you today and to take part in the church's Sunday worship online. We've been listening to your new senior pastor, James, speaking about Romans, and we found it very helpful to let him unpack that with some insights for us all. It's not Romans that I'm going to be speaking about today. It's actually one of the sayings of Jesus. To give you a reason possibly why I'm looking at this, a few weeks ago I was asked to complete a survey. And this is no surprise to you because we're being asked to review things constantly, whether it's the product or indeed the service that we've received. We are inundated with requests for this. But this was a survey relating to our diet throughout lockdown. They were saying, have you eaten more or less? Have you drunk more or less? And by that, I think they were thinking about alcohol. Have you changed your diet in any way? Have you eaten different things? And I guess they were wanting to see the impact that lockdown has had on people. For Christine and I, we probably weren't the people that they were looking for, simply because I truly believe that we haven't really done anything different by way of eating or drinking during lockdown as opposed to prior to lockdown. But we do know of people that have had more takeaway food, they have snacked more because they watch more television, and they have certainly drunk more alcohol as a way of perhaps coping with the restrictions that lockdown made. So we're thankful that for us we've managed to keep a fairly even keel. We've had the opportunity to be in the garden. The garden has never been tended so much as it has in these last few months. And the DIY, well, I have to tell you that there are things that might not have been tackled for another couple of years that have been done this time. So we've been grateful for that. But what I have become aware of, as I'm sure all of you have, is that we have lost some freedoms. Yes, although lockdown is easing at the moment, we are still very much restricted in how we relate to people. I'm grateful that we've been able to see our family in a way that in those early months we weren't. But nevertheless, the virus is still with us. And so there is social distancing. There's masks that we have to wear. We're continually washing after picking up things, doing things, walking, touching gates. We are constantly in that situation. So you could say, in fact, that we don't yet have the freedom. We're enslaved to the consequences of a virus that is still with us. It got me thinking about a phrase that Jesus said. He said, "The truth will set you free." What sort of truth was it? It was his truth. It was who he is, and to believe in what he says, to believe in his teaching, to believe in what he says is truth. And he said, and this truth will set you free. So I thought, in fact, it wouldn't be a bad thing to think about truth and his truth, and to see how it could set us free. So over these next few minutes, I'd like to put to you a response to that statement that he made, and perhaps to indicate one or two areas, in fact there's three areas that I want to look at that might indeed help us to understand what kind of life platform we build our lives on, and how in fact by trusting his truth that our lives could be even more fulfilling. The first of these three expressions of understanding truth and therefore gaining freedom, would be to think about the kind of things that have been said to us as we were growing up, and perhaps even today. I wonder if anybody has said to you, you are useless, you're a failure, you will never make anything of your life. It may be that they've not just been words that you've had to cope with, but maybe it's been the actions of people, broken promises. Maybe it has been a sense of rejection, that somehow people that are better, nicer, have been selected where you have been passed over. I wasn't particularly good at football when I was young, and I dreaded the day when the PE master would say, right, 2 captains, pick your teams. In the end, we'd get to the very end and the PE master would say, right, you 4 left, go on that team, and you 4 go on that team. If ever you had a sense of being utterly useless and unwanted, it was in things like that. Well, we have to get some backbone and we have to toughen up. But what I'm saying is we've been bombarded with these things. And while in some ways there might be some truth in it, perhaps we are not such a good footballer as somebody else, that might be truth. It's these other phrases where a sense of failure, you'll not amount to anything, and so on. Those are the things that go deep. And I want to say to you that if Jesus was standing in front of you, he'd say, I wouldn't say that to you. I'd want to say that you are of infinite worth. You have gifts. You have a character. I know this because my father and I were involved in your creation. I think he would say, my father is not wishing that you should not be in relationship with him because we love you. I think he would tell us that actually we are so valuable and so precious that in fact anything that was wrong with us, he wanted to put right. Any things in our thinking and acting that have been not the way that we should be, we tend to call it sin, wrongdoing, thoughts, feelings, actions. He said, I've died for all those things. I've paid the price for those things. Why? Because I'm not wishing to be without you. There's a worth on you that you have not become aware of, and it's because you have listened to lies. Now, I'm not suggesting that people have gone out of their way to tell lies, but what I am saying is they wouldn't be the truth that Jesus would want you to hear. And you've probably lived your life on the basis of those things, and you've probably responded, reacted, or even guarded yourself, or not done something because those are the strongest voices that you've heard. Sticks and stones may break our bones, but names will never hurt me. What a lot of nonsense. It is the physical that we are able to get over. But the emotional things, the things spoken over us, they're the things that seem to last a lifetime, into which Jesus says they are lies. Are you living your life on the basis of lies as compared with the truth that Jesus would say about you? The second illustration, I think, where we have to be careful not to simply live our lives on the mixed half-truths that come our way, is the way we judge ourselves. There are some people that seem to feel that they are perfection itself, and we're in no certain doubt about that by the way that they tell us. But there's an awful lot of people who say, I shouldn't have done that. I wish I hadn't have done that. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why did I behave like that? There's a sense of guilt. a very strong sense of guilt. And perhaps as a way of dealing with that, we continually try and be the best we can, to try harder and to try harder, and yet we keep failing. It was the Apostle John who struggled with this, but so did the Apostle Paul. And he came to a point where he said, I find myself wanting to do something, but I do the opposite. You see, we can actually be very strong on ourselves, hard on ourselves. The Apostle Paul would say, if you are a Christian, if you have truly accepted Jesus and invited him into your life, then you are a new creation. And as a new creation, a work that he has done in you by his Spirit, there is now no condemnation. And that's not to say that everything we do is right. But what we're being asked to consider is, are we free from the guilt of the things that we have done wrong? We can be, because Jesus says there is no longer condemnation. The Spirit within us, who has both made us new, recreation, and also helps us to live the Christian life, may well challenge us from time to time, may convict us from time to time. This is not the right way to go. And we have choices as to whether we listen to that voice or not. But we're not to be in condemnation. The third area, which is about trusting his truth over against the half-truths and the mixed truths that we have to live with, is the very way in which we can be beguiled by the voice that says, if you do this, your life will be so much better. You see, how often in marketing, the marketing of products, are we encouraged to buy these products because they will make such a difference to our life, our happiness, our well-being? Well, some of the things are probably quite good in themselves, but I would be very surprised if there weren't many people that said, you know, the marketing and the packaging was great, the product was found wanting. We get more excited about the buying of something than the actual having it. Well, there's a voice that often is speaking to us and tempting us. If you had this, your life would be better. If you were with that person, your life would be better. If you watched this program, if you spent your time on the internet with this and that, then it would be pleasurable for you. Go ahead. Well, I need to say that Jesus would say, you know, all it leads to is greater bondage, greater slavery. The more we step into those areas, the more we want to step into those areas. And suddenly we find that actually the grass wasn't greener on the other side. We suddenly discover that actually we've been lured to believe a lie. This person is the answer to all your needs. That's a lie. Because in fact, we can't have all our needs met by another person. We can learn how to be better people for our spouses. But if we're looking for someone in life that will meet all our needs, you'll never find it. Because they can only be truly met with God in the centre. But there's an enemy of God. He existed from the beginning, and we call him Satan or the devil. And we need to believe that he's real because he's spiritual and powerful and causes men and women to do the most dastardly things to each other. And we've seen that across the world. but he will always be on your shoulder, tempting you to believe this and to believe that, and then to act in this way, and then to regret what you've done afterwards, because he doesn't really care about you. He's just determined to draw you away from God's way. The Apostle Paul wrote in the second letter to the Corinthians. He said, I want to tell you something. When your thoughts come along which are prompting you to action, you take those thoughts captive and make them obedient to the truth of Christ. In other words, when you're tempted to say or do or act in a certain way, do you say, what would Jesus say about this? What would his take be on this? Would he say that this is good for me? Or would he say, don't go that way, don't go that way, no matter how attractive it is? Take every thought captive and make it obedient to what Christ would say and what Christ would want. So as we look back again at our reading, we look at the first verse and the last verse. He says this, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. If the Son, that means Jesus, sets you free, you will be free indeed. It is not for me to say when this coronavirus will be either dealt with or kept at bay for us to live ways that we've become more familiar to living. We can pray for a vaccine. We can pray for things that will deal with the problem. We can pray that God's kingdom will come and overrule in a kingdom of evil and disease and sickness. But in the meantime, we can actually live whatever way we have to live in the quiet confidence that Jesus tells us the truth about ourselves and the truth of how to live, because he has said that actually there is a full life to be lived if you live it with me. There's an abundant life to be lived. And I pray that if there's anyone here listening today, perhaps who's identified with some of those things, you will take hold of the truth of what Jesus says about you and live in that truth and not be falling for the next quick fix or the life that seems so much better, but in fact is a lie. God bless you all. I hope you have a very good week, and I look forward to hearing and seeing you in better days when we can perhaps return more physically together. God bless you. Amen.